Good morning, everyone. Welcome back for episode 6 with me, Doug Hewlett, and Brett Atterbury, two of the most handsome men you're going to find on this channel today at this exact moment. Because
Especially when they don't shave.
I shaved yesterday. Yeah,
You
I
did?
did a cold plunge this morning, shaved last night.
Doug, how often do you do the cold plunge, by the way?
I've been doing it 3 to 4 times a week.
Gosh, okay. I've been
Um,
doing it like once a month. That's probably not enough to have
so you've
effect,
done it
right?
once. So you've done it once then.
Yes. it, it definitely is a one and done experience. So I'm going to have to, yeah. When you said do hard things, I was like, yeah, do hard things. And then when I get to that point of doing hard things, I'm like, I'm not going to do that.
But it's only difficult for like the first 8 seconds, and
I
then
know.
everything's numb.
I know. I experienced that. So I just need to toughen up and get back in there, get back in the game.
Yeah, I don't know. I enjoy it. Again, it's one of those things where, like saying prayers in the morning, I feel like it's just a thing I have to do,
Yeah.
and I don't do it every day because then, I don't know. I'm always nervous about um, becoming habitual in things,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
So, granted, I find enjoyment in it. And if I go I got to do it every day, and then if I don't, then it's like, oh, well, I missed yesterday. I guess it's okay if I miss today. And it's by making it a little more sporadic for me, it just makes me, working out is the other one that's kind of hard just because,
Mm.
I'm gone all day. I get home. I want to catch up with my family and talk with them. And even though I work out in the barn and I've got Rocky Four style workout equipment. It's like a log, a bag of sand.
Sorry. That just sounds so manly and cool.
Well, you've been to my gym,
I'm
my barn
picturing
gym.
I'm picturing the Rocky side of beef hanging in there, and you're
Yeah,
sitting there like you got the bloody cloth around
yeah.
your hands, just pummeling and breaking ribs and like getting all tough.
I
Gosh.
appreciate that, but that's so far from reality.
Don't ruin it
well,
for me. Come on.
this is great, man. We're 6 episodes deep at this point.
Yeah.
Um, I think 3 people have watched them, which is good.
we're increasing by half a person a week.
Yeah, I mean, and one of these times, someone's going to watch the whole darn thing.
Yeah.
um, but no, look, like anything else, I know that you and I are trying to be consistent. We are trying to develop a habit, right?
Yeah.
Look, at the end of the day, if it's only ever you and I that sit down and watch these, and even just the process of recording them, if at the end of this exercise, it's only you and I who've bettered ourselves, then that's awesome. And
Yeah.
hopefully, maybe in the process of someone tuning in and catching a couple of minutes, they'll probably hear you say something insightful and me something stupid. And
Well,
maybe they take it
somebody
away with
has
them.
to say something insightful during this 30 minutes to 45 minutes. So might as well be me. I know you're still trying.
Yeah.
I can help you out there.
So, what's on your mind this week? What was it you wanted to talk about?
Yeah. I ran across, I think it was on Monday, and I get this, I think it's weekly update from this gentleman from this company called Monk Manual. And I've never bought a Monk Manual, but I think it's one of those many kinds of products out there. It's like a daily journal, schedule, prioritization, productivity tool. And I guess he has a particular angle on his that has to do with, monks and meditation. Why is it called Monk Manual? I'm not sure. I don't remember the history. Anyway, a couple of years ago, he said something interesting, and then I signed up for his weekly reflection, which I think is just a blog post. And then he sends it out on Monday, and I think I get it by text, and I looked at it, and I found that it could be applied to the things we talk about here, remembering our core theme from that St. John Paul II quote that God has assigned as a duty to every man the dignity of every woman. And so I looked at this, and his very brief blog post was on gratitude. And he starts off talking about how that has been a struggle for him. Not gratitude per se. I mean, he's grateful and he tries to practice gratitude and things like that, but he talked about, and I've experienced this as well, it's like we know we should be so grateful for everything. Like everything's a great gift in our lives, but as we go through our day, how grateful are we really?
Mm-hmm.
And so he said what he has started to do, which has helped him actually be more grateful, is look at the flip side of gratitude, which he calls entitlement. That really is that word really means a lot to me from some of the things in my past with others in relationships. Entitlement meaning like I deserve that,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is. I deserve that just because, not because I did anything to earn it. I'm just entitled to that. And he said, what has worked for him in gratitude, and this I found very interesting, what has worked for him in gratitude, instead of focusing on gratitude, is to think about the lessening entitlement, lessening his belief in entitlement to anything. And I think we all naturally have that from time to time. Probably if we look back on our day, like how many things do we feel entitled to? If we were really honest with ourselves, probably a lot of things. And so as he was practicing reducing entitlement, like I don't really deserve that just because. It's a gift that's been given to me. And because of that, because I realize that now, I feel great gratitude. So by him intentionally practicing reducing entitlement towards all the things in his life, he noticed that he was starting on the flip side to have greater gratitude for those things.
Mm-hmm.
I found that a really interesting approach that might work better for some people than just trying to focus on, oh, yes, I wake up in the morning. I'm so grateful that I'm alive. I'm grateful for God. I'm grateful for my spouse, my family, my friends, and those are fine things. But back to your comment a second ago about habits, and you just kind of like get in a habit and you're not really like feeling gratitude
Mm-hmm.
anymore
Sure.
or experiencing gratitude with that kind of emotional, spiritual, kind of uplifting experience that comes with it. And so, kind of taking what he was talking about over into the specific field that we talk about, I thought, men specifically, when we look at women in our circle of influence, starting with our spouses, maybe your young girlfriend, moms, dads, sisters, not dads, sorry, moms, sisters, women that you work with, women in your community, your neighbors, all that. How often do we as men feel that we're entitled to those relationships? And if you think about, especially if you're married, like how often do you take your spouse for granted? How often do you take your wife for granted? How often do you just expect that she should do certain things for you instead of realizing that everything that your wife does for you is in service and a gift? I don't think many men think of it like that a
Sure.
lot. Even very good men. I think we all get into a habit of just like, well, yeah, she should do that for me. I'm the breadwinner, for example, or I'm the this or I'm the that. She should do that for me. She owes that to me. And if you really step back and think about it, well, does she? I don't think so. I think the fact that your wife would do anything to help you in service of, in service of helping you become a better man or to live a better life is a gift, nothing that's owed to you. So I thought that was something really interesting that could be a help, a guide, an assist for men is to stop thinking about your wife as that your wife, for example, or any woman in your life like owes you anything, and start to see those relationships that you have with women as gifts so you don't feel entitled to anything from them. I think practicing that would help for men to have a greater sense of gratitude towards the women in their lives. So that was something that was on my mind. What do you think, Doug?
You know, I picture a sliding scale, like,
Mm,
a little, if you had to, how much do you agree with this statement? One of those, like, all the way to the left or all the way to the right.
mm,
I see gratitude and entitlement as two ends of that sliding scale.
mm,
And on any particular topic, you could slide the bar either over to entitled, or you could slide the bar all the way over to grateful, or you could leave it somewhere in the middle.
mm.
But the point is, like, it's the same. It's one end of that, whatever that topic is. I don't know. I'm
Mm,
not saying that well. You can't both simultaneously be grateful and entitled on a particular topic, right? Like,
mm.
I can't look at
Yeah, the two they don't coexist. They
yeah,
can,
yeah, exactly, right? Like, I can't look at a promotion that I'm trying to get, or a new job title that I acquired, right? And go, I deserve that. And at the
right.
same time, I'm so thankful that I got that. Like,
Mm,
those two things cannot coexist. And I think anyone who's ever done anything ever, right? Like, think of an athlete. You can't look at having just won a race. For, we'll use a track example. We can't look at a race that you've just won and go, yep, I deserve that, and I did nothing to warrant that achievement or that victory. Well, that's not the case, right? Like, man, I'm grateful that I just won because I put in all this work. So I can't,
mm.
I don't know. I'm babbling now, but I feel like you can't do the same. You can't do both at the same exact time. Man, that was a mouthful of garbage that just came out of my head.
Let me see if I can make that coherent. I'm gonna I'm gonna give you an assist, Doug. Yeah. So, what an interesting concept, though, that the two cannot coexist at the same time because they're fundamentally opposed.
Mhm.
Excuse me. They're fundamentally opposed to one another, and that's really interesting from a I would call from a the opportunity to practice perspective. So, as we're going through our day, there's always opportunity for self reflection. One of the things that I've been practicing is trying to be more prayerful throughout the day. So, as I think St. Paul said, pray without ceasing.
Mhm.
And we hear that, we're kind of like, how does one do that? It's like, that sounds impossible, at least in terms of like mental prayer. But I kind of have my own technique for that, which is just I use a part of the rosary, and then in a certain section, I'll either be a gratitude or please bless somebody or have mercy on me. Use that one a lot. Um, when you think about if you go throughout your day in terms of this gratitude entitlement spectrum, the one end and the other, can you kind of stop and start to develop a discipline around the things you're interacting with during the day, the people you're interacting with during the day, all the things that are coming into your life, and kind of stop, and it probably doesn't have to take long, maybe a couple of seconds, and just think about am I in a position, am I in a kind of a attitude of gratitude right now towards that, or am I in an attitude of entitlement?
You
Like I
know,
deserve that.
I think it comes back to something that you and I have discussed in the past, both personally, not on the podcast, as well as on the podcast. And I think it's somewhat about humility.
Mm,
You know, I know a few times I've mentioned here now about me losing my job last year, and here was a really difficult prayer that I tried to say on a regular basis. And what you were just saying about, pray without ceasing. I knew while going through, being unemployed and trying to figure out what I should be doing and what that next step was, I knew that God had a plan, but I didn't know what it was.
Mm.
And I found that I needed to keep my prayers around God. I know you have something planned for me, help to reveal it to me, show it to me, but I, I kept saying thank you for being in the really stressful, difficult position we were in. And in the process of acknowledging that God had a bigger plan for what we were going through than what I could possibly understand in that moment, it forced me to humble myself to say, like, I mean, at least in the words that I was speaking, I was humbling myself and saying, like, look, God, I know you got a plan here. I don't know what it is, but thank you, because I know you have something bigger or better or different or something that's less stressful or whatever. I know you have something planned.
Mm.
And by me doing that and saying that I recognize that you've got a plan that I can't see and I'm just going to go along with it, that humility helped me to be grateful for, man, every day I got to wake up and be around my daughter and my wife and not, screw out the door at 6 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning to get to Houston to go meet some doctor. Right.
Mm.
It was challenging and difficult because I didn't know where money was going to come from. Just all of that uncertainty. But when I forced myself to say that God had a bigger plan for me, I was being humble, right? I wasn't trying to take the onus on me to say, like, all right, Doug, you got to figure this out. And you've got, very limited time before, everything collapses around you.
Yeah.
It said, instead, it was, okay, God's got a plan. Stop trying to solve this on your own. Let God do his thing, and be grateful for the fact that, you're breathing. Be grateful for the fact that you get to be here on this property. Be grateful for the fact that you get to spend all of this extra time with your daughter and your wife. So, I think, oddly enough, showing gratitude for the situation we may be in, whether it's a glorious situation and things are awesome, or you are in the depths of despair, finding a way to be grateful for those things, regardless of their good or bad, takes a certain amount of humility, which is difficult for all men. But I think humility, again, is one of those things, like pride comes before the fall. And when pride is, I think, one of the things that men struggle with the most, because it's, I think it's effectively us putting ourselves in the place of God. Sure. when we're prideful. And, if we can start to master humility, it flows into everything else. It flows into the gratitude. It flows into understanding that we are not entitled to anything, right? I'm doing the Hallow Lent challenge. Mm-hmm. And Mark Wahlberg had he did the first Friday, and he was talking about fasting and spiritual fasting and sort of the impact that can have. And yeah, it's just, man, if anybody isn't on the Hallow app and is looking for a way, it's never too late. Even if it's on day 39 of Lent, jump in and do a thing. That Hallow app is a really good way to help us navigate things that are often kind of, challenging to do on our own.
Yeah. A couple thoughts, Doug. You said something interesting, which in your own experience of what you've gone through the past year, it reminded me of something you said, a bigger plan. And I think a lot of times, no matter what age, when you're a faith-based person and you start to, you're in, let's call it a time of life, a moment in life where things are kind of a little bit in turmoil. unclear, and you're saying, well, I trust God. God has a bigger plan for me. And I'm going to circle this within the entitlement thing, because I think a lot of times when we say that, we assume that it means a bigger plan in the material world, where something better is going to happen, measurably better materially over time. I think a lot of men would fall into that, maybe women too, not so sure. And I thought, yeah, that's back to humility. That's not humility. There's a real possibility that even if you're a multimillionaire, God may be calling you to be a monk that embraces poverty. That could be the bigger plan. Because in the spiritual world, that bigger thing is much bigger than what you were previously doing, right? If God happened to call you to that kind of radical conversion. But if we don't feel entitled to something bigger here on earth, and we humble ourselves and just say, God, I am yours. You gave me all these gifts. You gave me these talents. You gave me these experiences. Use me in some way. I don't know what that's going to look like. From the eyes of the world, it may look like something much smaller, but from the eyes of eternity, it's something much bigger, spiritually, psychologically. And to me, I love that you brought up humility, because it's hard to do that unless we're truly humbling ourselves as we ask for that, for God, who wants to give that to us, but he wants to give it to us in a way that glorifies him. And a lot of times, of course, when we're just seeking material advancement in the world, things in the world's eyes would look like, wow, that's much bigger for Doug. That's much bigger for Brett. Aren't necessarily things that are going to expand us in terms of our spirituality.
And here's something that I, again, coming back to athletic stuff, you know that you will not get better at your thing without failure, right? Whether you're an athlete, whether you're a craftsman, whether you're a surgeon, whatever, like you have to do the stuff. But doing the stuff means you will fail at some point, right? You're not going to do it well enough. And from that mistake, you will develop your skills. If you every time you step on the racetrack, you always win and never have to practice, that first time that somebody, like just because, especially when you're younger, like that's sort of a reality. You could just be naturally quick.
Yeah.
Or you beat everybody when you're running. But the first time you lose, that is ground shaking. And then you realize, like, okay, well, boy, I need to practice and get better here. And it's funny. Men, I think, are naturally wired, especially Christian men. Like, we all do this. We expect that God will bless us with good things that make us comfortable, right? I'm going to pray and I'm going to deepen my faith. And the result of that will be a nicer home, a better car, like all of the trappings of life. Nicole's going through a Bible study right now, and she's been talking a lot about, not wanting the blessings, but wanting to walk with Christ, right? Not wanting the God, I pray and I'm trying to be the best Christian I can be. Bless me with your favor. Bless me with a better job. Bless me with like the trappings of blessings rather than the accompaniment of God. The funny thing is, God, Jesus doesn't say, pack up your Ferrari and follow me.
He doesn't?
Grab your comfy mattress and follow me. He says, pick up your cross.
I think, Doug, in some biblical translations, he does say something like that.
Right? Like, to a first century Jew, a cross was they knew what that meant. To us, it's
Yeah.
a symbol now of Christianity.
Yeah.
To a first century Jew, the cross was a grotesque,
Terrifying.
horrible way to die.
Hmm. The stuff of nightmares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And pick up this instrument of death and what's the word I'm looking for? Like embarrassment, right? Like they weren't crucifying good people, right? As a Jew would understand it. The Romans weren't going around crucifying, just some guy. Yet for us today, we somehow have gotten into the habit of interpreting "pick up your cross and follow me" as like, come follow me and I'm going to reward you with all these great things.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Isn't it interesting, Doug, on your word there, embarrassment? I think maybe this is just an American thing. I'm not sure. I'm sure it exists in other cultures, but for men, this expectation back to in the eyes of the world, Brett is. In the eyes of the world, Doug is. In the eyes of the world, put your name, put your, Bob, John, Frank is. We are conditioned from early on that that's going to have some semblance of success. That's what we'll be striving for. And we go, what does that mean? Well, it starts to look like a lot in our culture, some kind of material success, some kind of powerful influence over others. And I think that is so driven into us from a young age, from parents, friends, culture. I realize I'm generalizing, and it really, when you start to think about what it does to men, and I'm speaking very personally here because this was, hammered into me. Well, if you don't meet that expectation, or something happens, some kind of turmoil happens, and you go off the rails, and it's very obvious that you're not meeting that expectation, this deep embarrassment. I was going to say shame. I'm not sure it's shame. It's more like embarrassment. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't meet those expectations. And think about that from the perspective you were talking earlier about God's bigger plan for you. And like you said, I'll say it another way. Jesus didn't say, pick up your joy and follow me. Like pick up your cross and follow me, or didn't say, pick up your big house and follow me, and your CEO job, over 1,000 people and follow me. There's going to be crosses. And it's amazing to think about, in those crosses, and I've experienced this the past 10 years, especially, while there's a lot of suffering involved, especially emotional, spiritual suffering, the blessings that end up coming out of that through going through the experience of a deep, in this case, I'm going to say humiliating experience, but obviously related to humility. Humiliating in this sense, though you don't feel that way at the time, actually is a cleansing kind of experience. It brings you down to a reality. Humility brings you down to the ground. Mm-hmm. And it's at that point where you can kind of jettison all of that junk and all that crap, because the truth is it's nothing but a lie for the most part. The truth is, I don't mean this, don't take this the wrong way. I know you won't. Most people don't care about what you're doing. They're so concerned about their lives and their own thing. It's like they don't sit around and think about you all day and wondering, where are you on the rung of success? Nobody cares. You realize this as you get older. You don't realize it in your 20s and 30s, unfortunately. When you get a bit older, you realize, like, yeah, no one really cares. who does care all the time, who's watching me all the time, and who wants to bless me all the time and pull me into his will for my life, and that would be God.
Mm-hmm.
And all those talents and experiences and everything that he's given you weren't necessarily to go crush it in the business world and build an empire for yourself, right? Um, and I think men in our country, that message is rarely given out in school. Parents rarely give it out. The ones that do give out the message to their kids about just find God's plan for you and get after it. You know, what a great blessing if you have those kinds of parents.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think those kind of parents are rare, unfortunately. I think for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
it's get out there and be successful and climb that rung and off you go and make a lot of money and be powerful and all those things. And we don't have to do that. Not only do we not have to do it, we shouldn't be doing that. We should be seeking what is it that God is asking us to do, even if He's blessed us with incredible talents. Those talents aren't necessarily to be used to enrich oneself with material goods.
Look, I mean, it's funny when you were saying, people aren't sitting awake at night wondering how is Brett doing? Is Brett going to succeed? Man, I wonder how I stack up against Brett. Like,
Mm.
I know that is not the case, but I'll tell you what, here's something that I realized this past year. There are only, and when I say a small handful of people
Mm.
who were there for me as I was going through what I went through. People that I thought were some of my closest friends.
Mm.
And look, everyone has their own crap that they're going through and
Yeah.
struggles and dealing with. But there were very few people who were there, not every day, but just like checking in to be like, hey man, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And they were not the people that I thought they would be.
Wow.
And obviously through that, by realizing that I was, there were some days, brother, where I felt like I was, it's a good time to bring this up, like, in the desert, right? Today's reading is about, Jesus going into the desert for 40 days.
Mm.
There were days where I felt completely alone, even
Right.
though my wife was there. Like, I felt like I was all alone. And it was
Mm.
in those moments of feeling completely deserted and abandoned that I felt like the only person that's there for me is God.
Yeah.
Looking for him, trying to hear him, trying to listen. And all the people that I thought, that would be there for me were nowhere to be found, didn't acknowledge, what I was going through, shut the door or slammed the door in my face and didn't want to, I just didn't even want to have a conversation. And that it wasn't that I mean, granted, it stung a bit,
Yeah.
but at the end, I saw who the people that did care about me, because the people who did care about what I was going through were not people that were there looking to benefit from me in whatever role I was in, right? Like there are always the people that like, hey man, if Doug gets this job, like maybe Doug can help me, right? Those
Right.
people who look at, they fell away.
Mm.
And, and again, Nick, you're obviously one of those people who was in that group checking in on me and, praying for me and just being a friend, just being somebody that I knew I wasn't alone.
Yeah. Mm.
But at the end of it all, like, the one super consistent person who was there the whole time was God. And I don't say that to sound corny, but
Yeah.
in the moments of feeling alone, I didn't feel alone, if that makes absolutely any sense. There was a lot of walking around this property, just walking through the trees, walking up and down the driveway, just trying to, not feel alone. And I didn't. So,
Do you remember, Doug? There's how does that work? There's something, I think it's on the beach. So it's like in the
oh,
sand. And so
footprints.
footprints. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Makes me
you
cry every
die.
time.
Yeah.
Every grandmother in America, I think, has that hanging in the
Well,
hallway of their house.
okay. I'm going to be your grandmother for a minute. Um, I just thought that was always, as you were telling that story, what you were going through, it's so true. It's like, who is going to carry you when you're at your lowest? I mean, like as low as you can get. And of course, God is always going to carry you in those moments, right? And it's only a lot of times in hindsight that you see it. I've been there, as you know, and you look back on it, and then it's kind of funny. Humans are weak, men are weak, and so you go through that, you've experienced it, and then life is life. Life is hard, so it comes around again to greet you again. Here comes turmoil again. And are you going to remember that God was there for you the first time, or are you going to go back to this time is different and I'm all alone, nobody loves me, when you should know through going through that experience the first time that of course God is there for you. Is it guaranteed that it's going to be the outcome that you desire? Of course not. Because again, God may have a bigger plan in mind, and a part of that plan could be major suffering coming your way for a
Yeah.
while so that he can get you out of that thing that you believe is so important at the time. And God, I have to have this. And you're asking and praying for it. And God's like, I have something better for you.
Mm-hmm.
It was a priest a while back. This would have been like I think right after I came into the Catholic Church, which is coming up on 20 years in a couple of months. And what did he say? He goes, God, I think it was during his homily, and I don't know if he picked this up from somewhere else, but it's like, God never says no to you in the things that you request. He either says yes or yes, but not now,
Yeah.
or I have something better for you. And I think it's on that last one that we really struggle with, right? Because when we put up our request to God and he asks us specifically to do that, ask, right? Uh, what we're really asking most of the time is for that divine stamp of approval on our plan. And which is kind of funny. It's pretty humorous, I'm sure, from the view of heaven, because since we have basically no view of anything at all, no matter how smart and talented, experienced we are, we have no idea what the hell is going on. Of course we don't, right? Nobody, anybody that claims that they know what's going on is arrogant and foolish. There's like, no, you don't. There's no way. Nobody knows what's going on. So yes, go ahead and ask, come up with the best thing that you can in terms of God. I'd really like this to happen. That's fine to ask for that. But probably the deeper understanding, if we could all develop this back to humility, is he may just say yes, but not now, or probably more likely say, I have something better for you.
I think, how do you feel about whether or not God actually gives you exactly the thing you want sometimes, knowing that it will be, you know, I think sometimes I get what I ask for because it's something that it's a mistake, right? But I need to learn from it. So I get it only so that I can be like, yeah, that was not the right thing to ask for.
Yeah, I mean, I think that happens. We need look no farther than our experience with our own children, right? Sometimes they are absolutely certain, especially when they're much younger, that what they're asking you for, what they're asking dad for, they have no doubt in their mind it is a thing that they must have. 100%. You know from your life experience that this isn't the thing they need to have. However, I want them to learn a lesson here. So I'm going to let them have that thing, and then they learn the lesson. And then you get to circle back in love and charity and say, well, as I was trying to show you, this is not the best thing for you. now that you've learned the lesson, let's talk about what's better for you. I'm sure God does that with us like all the time so that we can again be humbled and learn to turn to him and ask him for, what's best in our lives, and then, patiently wait for it.
So let me ask you this. What have you got going on this week?
My goodness. I have a lot of stuff going on, Doug. At work, Heroic Media continues to do very exciting work around telehealthcare for women. So I think I'm sure we mentioned this on a previous episode, but just briefly, the world of pro-life in the United States is very interesting. There's been for decades a lot of stuff going on. Most of that effort is geared toward legislative type of work to protect preborn babies. Now, let me say before anyone starts yelling at me, that is a wonderful thing, and that's great. However, as a marketer, which I am by career and by background, one of the first things I do when I'm thinking about creating anything that's going to try to influence somebody is who is the final decision maker about whether they're going to buy that product, adopt that idea, do that thing. And I hope this is obvious to people, but the preborn human being is not the decision maker in this specific issue of choose life or choose abortion. And so our thing at Heroic Media has been, hey, let's focus on the decision maker. And since she's the one ultimately that makes the decision, how can we influence her to make that decision for life? Not necessarily when she's in crisis, though we do that work too, but how can we start to form an image in her mind well before she ever faces this issue so that she will know that there is a place for her that will give her accurate medical information about abortion, accurate medical information about carrying her pregnancy to term, and also what is available to her should she choose to carry her pregnancy to term. What is available to her in terms of emotional support and financial support. And so that is the work at Heroic Media that we continue to do to make women aware through branding that these types of things are available to them, that there's a service that can actually bring this kind of information to them and connect them to those kinds of resources. So we're in the middle of we've been testing this for quite some time, but we're in the middle of really starting to solidify that in terms of a strategic plan that we can take out to other cities across the country. So this is a really exciting time for us. And every week right now is just really working hard on that, our team, and taking bigger steps towards making that a reality. So it's a really cool time. So getting up and going to work on Monday is fun.
Yeah, I hear you. I can actually, I can appreciate that. I've been noticing that, as Sunday winds down and comes to an end, and we're just relaxing as a family, I'm like, ooh, I'm excited for work tomorrow, which is something that I haven't felt in a very, very long time.
Maybe like forever.
So
how long has it been, by the way?
I mean, my first 7 years, I'd say the first 5 years of working in orthopedic trauma, I knew that I was actually doing something good. I felt like I was part of a team that was helping people on their worst day. I enjoyed that. The next 15 years, however, watching surgeons make decisions based on what will pay them more, became a little frustrating. Like, oh, yeah, that's a great product. But, I don't make as much money from my professional fee from the insurance company, so I'm not going to do that.
Gosh.
Oh, good choice, doc.
Wow.
So, and then, that's on me, right? For the next 15 years, I just kept doing it. So,
Mm.
but now, like somebody asked me the other day, they're like, how's it going? I was like, it's great. I don't get phone calls from a hospital at 9 o'clock at night on a Sunday and go, nobody dropped off the equipment for surgery tomorrow. Why? And you need to get it here. Otherwise, the doctor's going to be mad and we're going to tell him it was your fault. Like, oh, cool.
Wow.
Now my evening is ruined and I got to try and figure out how can I get this stuff and where do I have to drive to go get it? And it's 10 o'clock at night now. I got to drive to Dallas to go pick up equipment and drive it back and drop it off at a hospital in San Antonio. And, all of this needs to happen. And I got to make 15 other phone calls to get somebody from the hospital to show up and process the equipment. Like, it's awful. Yeah. Now at 5 o'clock, everyone in the shop comes in and literally, like the Flintstones, you remember, like at the end of the day, there'd be like the whistle and the bird's tail.
I'm out of here.
But like, yeah, they go in and they punch their time card and they say good night and then they leave. And at like 10 after 5, nobody's in the shop. Like, and I get to drive home and go see my family. And that's it. Like the day is done. Now, because I really enjoy it, my wife is driving by, so I'm going to wave to her as she leaves the house. Bye, honey. She sees me waving. I go home and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. So I get to, I can't help but think about projects that I want to design or, ideas, that I have for work. Like for right now, I'm working on, I want to figure out how to build a special type of drawer that has, well, never mind. I'm working on trying to come up with a special drawer design that I think we could create and then input into people's kitchens, as they're redesigning their kitchens. Like my threshold for like the level of stress that I can handle is very high, but the level of stress that I have to deal with on a daily basis now is like, nothing. It's absolutely nothing. Actually, the biggest stress I had was I left the office on Friday and forgot to unplug the coffee pot. I had to turn around and go back.
Man, that's a real tough one. Isn't it interesting though? It's like when you are in alignment with what God wants for you. And in this specific case, we're talking about profession, but you could like pretty much talk about it in any part of your life. It's like you're going to have that feeling of joy for sure, but it's like integrity in the sense that everything feels congruent. Everything feels like in alignment. Everything that I'm doing here feels integral to what brings me joy and joy to those around me. So I would almost say it's like, man, if there's something going on in your life, personally, professionally, and you just know it's the stress, the anxiety, really kind of the unjust treatment like you were experiencing with hey, go to the hospital on Sunday at 9 p.m. because if you don't, Dr. So-and-so is going to hate you. We're going to tell on you. Yeah. It's like to me, it's like God knocking on your head, on your forehead, like real hard, saying it's time to move on. This is not what I want for you. I have something better. But like you were saying in an earlier episode, it's hard. The trappings that came along with all that stuff you're going to was hard to let go of, or at least the fear. You had the fear that you were going to be letting go of that. It's tough.
And coming back full circle to the point you made earlier, I had a fear of how I would be viewed by my peers. People I went to college with, people that, I worked with, like, oh, what will those people think of the choices that I've made that have brought me here?
Yeah.
As if somehow this was a failure. The funny thing is, for years, standing in operating room during the week, even, like I'd be driving from here to Louisiana or flying to Louisiana for work or to Arkansas or wherever I had to go. I would find myself thinking about projects that I was going to be building, like things that I was excited. I wasn't thinking about how do I solve complex problems at work, because nobody was interested ever in solving those problems. That was just how we did things, even though it was stupid. Let's just keep doing them the same way. The things that I filled my time with, my free time in my head, were projects that I was getting to build.
Wow.
And now, like, that's what I do. So, it's just funny how congruence, I like that. Like there is an alignment, I feel, with who I am and how my brain works, but as well as like God's plan for my life. Like, I don't know why I'm here. Yeah. I just know that I'm here and everything feels right.
It's huge.
And I think this last year we realized what we truly need to be happy. Like for me, some hand tools and having my wife and daughter near me. Like I hated traveling and being away from them. I turned down lots of jobs higher up the ladder because it was going to force me to be away from home even more.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that I at least knew like, that's not right for me. Like I won't thrive in that situation of being away from my family even more.
Yeah.
And
may have a lot of money, but so what? It's like a lot of money and deeply unhappy is like, there ain't no money going to take care of that unhappiness, period. I know that from my own past experience. It's like, don't do that.
Yeah. So no, man, this is good. Look, like I said at the outset, even if nobody watches this, I just enjoy, hopping on a video call with one of my best friends and talking about stuff.
Yeah. We're growing together and I get to teach you, big vocabulary words like congruency. I'm always about building you up and making you smarter. You can probably use that at work on Monday and impress everybody.
I'll try. Hey, where's your hat?
It's in my closet.
Are you still liking it? Have
Yes.
you gotten any questions about it?
No.
Not yet.
I think, Doug, you have to, when you think about it, a hat and a logo, it's like you have to be really close to somebody and they have to like really look at it. So I think our next
shirt.
Merchandise thing should be some kind of shirt, because those are like, big, bold. Right? Big and bold. And I think we need a shirt. We do. Let's do a shirt, Doug.
Done. And I think I've got the resources now. I'm just about finished my taxes, and I think I'm gonna be clear of some of this. I'm
gonna have enough refund to buy a T-shirt.
I can buy a T-shirt. Woohoo! Yeah. Hey, and
I'm so happy for you.
I'm grateful.
Yeah. Do you feel entitled to that T-shirt, Doug?
I do not.
Or is it really more of a gift?
Yeah, it's definitely a gift. Well, hey, you have a great day, Brett. Thanks for this time, and take care.
Thank you, Doug. Same to you. God bless.